Alright. Paladin. Off the list. Crank the number down again. Let's see what we get. 3. Mieruko-chan. This is some supernatural show. Let's see how it do. Alright, I just finished all of Mieruko-chan, and that might be the most stressful anime experience I've ever had. I liked it. I definitely liked it, but, okay, so I'm gonna share a little personal detail with you. My biggest irrational fear, like totally unfounded fear that I just am terrified of constantly, is hallucinating. Like the notion that I might just suddenly start hallucinating something that's not there, especially when I'm around other people, that terrifies the shit out of me totally irrationally, because there's no real reason why I would think I would ever hallucinate anything. And this show basically covers that experience in a very roundabout way, because like the premise of the show is that the main character, Miko, can see a bunch of supernatural, awful looking ghost shit that no one else can see. And she's just constantly terrified of it. So, like, for at least the first 6 or 7 episodes, I was constantly on edge the entire fucking time. Because that is my fucking nightmare. That is, like, the worst experience I could possibly fucking think of outside of, like, actual physical harm. So, I definitely empathized with the main character quite a lot. And it was a really interesting take on it, too. Like, with this kind of setup, normally this would transition into some kind of, like, battle shonen or something of that nature. Just like a supernatural battle kind of series. And there are battles that happen, but that's not really what it's about. Like, the only battles that happen are between different spirits. Miko really doesn't do much except at the very end of the show. So I like that the premise, or like the main thrust of the show is just her trying to avoid letting on that she knows that she can see these ghosts. Because they don't say what happens if the ghost recognizes that it can see you. Cause they say, like, they make it pretty obvious that the ghosts can't directly interact with humans for the most part, it looks like. But they never say that they can't. And that's really the driving force of the threat in this show. Is that it gives you it keeps the perfect amount of information away from you. It is the perfect balance of telling you just enough to understand how this works, but not enough to where you will feel safe in certain situations. Like, there is because you don't know what happens if these ghosts recognize that Miko can see them. Like, it actually happens once. And it ends with the ghost just fucking lunging at her before, like, a god from a shrine that she visited protects her. So, for all we know, that ghost could have possessed her, or inflicted a curse on her, or just straight up killed her. We don't know. And I think that's kind of brilliant about this series, is you don't know what's actually gonna happen. So it constantly keeps you on edge, and it puts the main thrust of this show on Miko coming up with shonen battle ways of avoiding battle. Like, she has to be real clever about figuring out how to avoid certain ghosts. Or she just has to be real brave and just tough it out until she can leave. Even when a ghost swings an axe into her head on the train and she can't move and she pees her pants. Like, she literally pees her pants. This poor girl. Hey. That is just this... sorry, it's a little late. I watched most of this show after work today. I just watched like 10 episodes straight of it. So, I'm a little tired, but yeah, that's the main thrust of this show. If you like stress-inducing shit like that, definitely check it out. I normally don't, but I empathized so fucking hard with this character that I couldn't turn away, and I'm glad I got to the end of it. I also like what they do where they really widen the range of how evil each of these ghosts are. I'm just gonna call them ghosts. They don't say they're ghosts, but they kind of are ghosts. Because like some of them are just they're just evil and creepy. Some of them are just creepy and are kind of there. Some of them are hunting down ghosts that are possessing people, but they still look creepy as fuck. Some of them are gods. Like I said, like Miko visits a shrine at one point, and she gets like a 3-peat get out of jail free card, essentially, where the god of the shrine protects her 3 times because she made an offering. That was really kind of cool. But then there are ones where it's like the ghost is just really kind of sad, and Miko like helps the ghost out in a roundabout way, and it's grateful to her. It actually says thank you to her. There's one where the ghosts are just outright good. Like, there's some like cat ghosts that show up with this Yakuza looking dude who's one of the best characters in the show. It's basically like this super tough Yakuza looking guy who just loves cats and cake. He's just the best. But yeah, Miko, really liked her as a character. All the characters in this are really good. I guess my main complaint, that I'm not even sure if I think it's fully a complaint or not, because they make it real complicated in the end, is one particular character, the teacher, Zen. He shows up in an early episode, and immediately by the type of ghosts that are surrounding him and the aura that he gives off, your immediate impression is, oh, this guy kills cats. Oh no. I'm like, that's bad. Oh boy, we really went there. I also like that the show doesn't always spell stuff out for you. Like, it kind of just lets you... It kind of just lets that sit on your brain for a bit before it actually dives into this character's backstory. And he's definitely a much more sympathetic character. Spoiler, he doesn't kill cats. But I feel like there was a missed opportunity to make this character actually morally gray, as opposed to just being put upon by the ghosts that haunt him. but I don't dislike his character as is. I was hoping for an actual human villain. Because that would have been really interesting to be like, oh, the ghosts aren't... Well, they do it for a bit. It's the idea of, oh, the ghosts aren't the only people you have to worry about. You have to worry about this fucker who may or may not kill cats. But then it's like, no, the humans are just good. Except for the actual guy that's killing cats, who then goes missing after the teacher tases him. Did the teacher kill him? I don't know yet, because the series leaves off on a fucking cliffhanger like that. I'm concerned. I kind of hope this gets a second season. I would absolutely watch a second season of this. Especially because it's really solid looking. This is a good looking show, which I am surprised by from Studio Passion. I would say this is their second best looking show, because they also did interspecies reviewers, but generally this studio is not good. You may know them from such series as Rail Wars, and Roka, Braves of the Six Flowers, and the Higurashi sequels, the new ones. So, I typically don't have much respect for this studio. I think most of their output looks like shit. But this one was really clean, really polished, never really saw anything that looked jank or just outright bad. I'm especially amazed that they didn't just use CG for the ghosts. Like, that would have been... That seems like the very obvious cost-cutting measure. But now that I think about it, all of the ghosts are very unique in design, and they're very intricate in design. So, I don't know. Actually, now that I think about it, I guess coming up with that many CG models would actually be more effort than hand drawing. But they also do this cool thing where they pump up the frame rate on the ghosts, the animation of the ghosts, like especially their mouths. Like, it jumps to like 48 or 60 FPS when their mouths are moving. I don't know if it's frame interpolation or if it looks like it's some kind of software doing it. It doesn't look like it's actually 60 drawn FPS. That would be a fucking nightmare for the animators on this. That would be awful. But yeah, it looks... They did some interesting, like, computer interpolation with it or something like that. And it looks creepy as fuck. And it works. And the ghosts are really creepy. The digital effects surrounding the ghosts makes them look really eerie and creepy. And the sound design for this series is fucking amazing too. Fucking creeps the fucking shit out of me. Yeah, I really liked this show. I'm just disappointed that it kind of left off on a cliffhanger. I don't think they've announced a second season, so that will be kind of disappointing if it doesn't get a second season. I want to know what the hell's going to happen with the gods that Miko called on, basically, because they're kind of just following her during the last scene of this show. So we'll see how it goes. Oh, shout out to Kadokawa for... Well, I guess not Kadokawa, but shout out to the director for fucking with the Kadokawa logo in the very last fucking shot of the show, where it just, like, starts glitching out and then the ghosts show up over it. That was clever. Oh, the one thing that I am also not too keen on is this is a very leery series when it comes to the fan service. Like, some of the shots I get, like they're in the locker room or they're in the bathroom or something, but then there are just shots where it just hyper focuses on a character's tits or their ass, or like just scans all up and down their body, and it just feels weird in these weird moments. And I'm not opposed to the show having fan service, like especially the bathroom scenes. That came out wrong. I think in terms of the vulnerability that fan service offers in narratively, I think the episode 4, the bathroom scene, was unbelievably uncomfortable and terrifying. Because it's like this is going on like 4 episodes of Miko having to deal with these fucking shit ass ghosts, and then one just shows up in her bathroom while she's taking a bath, and she's just like, no, not here, anywhere but here. And like, I get that as like the bathroom is like your last safe haven of privacy. Even that is getting ripped away from you by these ghosts. So that was good. But some of the other fan service stuff just looked kind of very in your face. And I'll admit it was hot, but it also came off a little bit annoying. But yeah. I recommend Mieruko-chan. Now let's go figure out where to rank it.
Alright. Mieruko-chan is done. We're gonna put it... Let's see. We're gonna put it right here. And we're gonna give this one... We're gonna give it a strong 7. Honestly, this list is very quickly becoming meaningless because so much shit is in so close proximity to each other. But the list is a list. So anyway, down to the last 5 shows of the season. Again, saving Revue Starlight movie and Mushoku Tensei season 2 for last. So we're gonna roll for 3 and see what we get. 2, which is Muteking, the Dancing Hero. This is another OLM one. Let's see how it goes. Will it be another Megaton Q? Let's find out.
Okay, so a bit of a correction. This was not an OLM one. This is actually by Tatsunoko Productions, which I have not seen anything from in quite a bit. It's been a couple years as far as I can remember. And I think it needs to stay that way. This was not good. I got about 9 minutes in and I was mostly annoyed by everything. This is one of those shows that tries to be cool. I'm pretty sure this is a kid's show, so I totally understand it, but this is one of those shows that tries to be cool and hip. Reminded me a lot of the worst shit from Digimon Universe Apple Monsters. It's not cool. It's really lame. And I'm not here for it. Also, the character designs are kind of not... They're interesting, but they're not great. And I will say there was a kind of funny parody of the iPhone like trailer, iPhone like conferences and stuff back when Steve Jobs did them. So I'll give it credit for that, but I am going to get annoyed by this show very fucking fast. I don't even know what kind of show this is supposed to be yet. I'm like 9 minutes in and I don't really understand what's going on. So I don't care. Let's move on.
Alright, Muteking's coming off the list. We're nearing the end. Let's see who's next. 2. Kaginado. This is the basically Key's version of Carnival Phantasm. Let's see if it's as good.
Alright, I just watched all of Kaginado, and honestly, I'm kind of surprised that if I had not gone looking for this show, I would have completely missed it, because nobody talked about this show at all, even though it's basically Carnival Phantasm for Key shows. Key being the company Key Visual Arts. They made Clanad, Canon, Air, Little Busters, Planetarium. What was the other? Rewrite. Now, much like Carnival Phantasm, I haven't seen all of the properties that it involves. I've only seen Clanad and Planetarium, and I watched a little bit of Rewrite. I still need to see Canon Air and Little Busters, but the jokes worked regardless, much like in Carnival Phantasm. Honestly, I would almost put this on Carnival Phantasm's level. I don't think the animation is a little below Carnival Phantasm, but it's still surprisingly solid. And it's the same kind of humor as Carnival Phantasm. It's in jokes about the properties that they reference. Also, apparently, Clanad fans are fucking brutal. Like, the way that Rio from Clanad describes how the fans see her is just... it's brutal. Like, damn, hon, I'm sorry. It plays well with the tropes. The comedy is good. This isn't a fucking isekai quartet situation where it's just shit. This one's actually good. And they do it's a lot of really good meta humor. I mean, that's really all I have to say, is if you like the style of Carnival Phantasm and you like key anime, you should watch this, because it's a fun time. Also, there's a surprise cameo at the very, very end that I'm not going to spoil because it was fucking funny. Keiko Suzuki solo voice acting a single episode because she voices all of the characters in it. She voices like 5 characters from key anime. So that's kind of funny. They even reference the original canon anime at one point, the one that Kyoto Animation didn't do. I don't know who did the original one from like 2000 or whatever, but it's the one that everyone thought fucking sucked. So like, it's only mentioned in passing, but they're like, oh, she's the one from the video game and the anime and the other anime. I'm like, oh, deep cut. All right. Yeah, this was fun. Would recommend. It is good.
All right, Kaginado is done. We're gonna put it right here. Is a nice, decent 7 kind of show. I enjoyed that. All right, we're down to the last 3. Might as well just do them in order. So yeah, let's jump into Yoru no Kuni. This is some kind of music video project from Aimer, I think. Let's give it a go.
Alright, I finished all of Yoru no Kuni, also known as Night World. This is just a short little project directed by Ryo Timo, which I did not see coming. I did not know that he was involved in this. And also, it takes like until like the last third of the first episode to be like, wait, Ryo Timo directed this? Because a lot of the first episode is mostly like stills and very limited animation. Nothing super explosive. And then like the last third or last half hits of the first episode, and you're like, oh, there's the Ryo Timo. There it is. I don't know how much of it he key animated, though. There's not a lot of... The staff listings on Mail are very sparse. I might have to check ANN's database for this one. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of Ryo Timo isms in this. He was chief animation director for Birdie the Mighty Decode. If you've seen that, some really like visceral animation in that one. And he's also just a veteran key animator across so much of anime. He's done stuff in Baccano and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and just he's a big time animator. So it's nice that he got to do like his own little side project. And each episode has like an Aimer song as an insert track or / credits track. I'm not super into Aimer. She's fine. I like all of the stuff she does for Fate, and I like that one song she did for like a single episode of Kabaneri, but outside, I didn't find any of her tracks in this particularly interesting. They just seemed like general kind of pop tracks. It was fine, but yeah, this was kind of like a teaching you life lessons kind of mini-series. Like, it's only 3 episodes, and it's like a total of 27 minutes runtime, so you can knock this out in the span of a single anime episode. Obviously, I'm going away with the recommendation on this one, but it's got some pretty nice little, like, life lesson kind of things. The first one is about coping with with death. Second one is about not being afraid of your friends expounding outside of your own friend group, and just not being afraid of other people, essentially, kind of something like that. And then the third one I think really ties everything together, because like the first two, it's like they go into the dream world. The Nightman Yoru talks to them for a little bit, does a little basic philosophizing at them, and then they come away with a lesson learned. And that was nice. But then the third one, it's an adult who met Yoru in her childhood, grew up trying to do the things that Yoru taught her, and just kind of failed at them. And so this is her coming back as an adult and remembering what Yoru taught her and just trying to pick herself back up again. Like, it opens on like it's looking at her computer, and you see like an email of a rejection letter for a job. I'm like, oh, I feel attacked. But yeah, I think that final episode really tied everything together, instead of it just being like a series of 3 individual stories. It felt like a final episode. Like, hey, sometimes we lose our way. Sometimes the lessons we learn don't always stick. Again, I feel attacked. But you just gotta pick yourself up again and just go for it again. I think that's a really cool message to end on. The artwork was pretty solid overall. Again, some of the limited animation stuff, I wasn't super fan of, because it's really like, it's animating on like, I don't even know what it is. It's animating on like 6s at some point, I guess you would say. Like, it's real slow sometimes. It's just not a lot of frames in them. But when Rio Timo starts to be Rio Timo, it looks fucking amazing. In particular, there was one shot of a notebook falling into a trash can, and just the physics of that looked really fucking cool. That's a thing with Rio Timo. He's really good at making stuff look realistic, or at least simulating a version of realistic movement. So yeah, this is a good, fun, short, nice little heartwarming bit. I enjoyed that.
Alright, Yoru no Kuni is done. We're gonna put it, where was it? Right here. I'm gonna put it right there. Give it another decent 7. Alright. 2 shows left. One's a movie and one's a sequel. Well, they're both sequels, actually. Let's get into the Revue Starlight movie. Actually, before that, I have to, I have not seen the series since it first aired, like almost 3 years ago. So I'm going to watch the Rondo movie before I jump into the sequel movie. Because I also haven't seen that, and I heard that the ending is slightly different. In a very morbid way. So let's jump into it.
Alright, well, I finished the Revue Starlight movie, and I'm gonna be honest, this is gonna be a hard one to talk about because I just didn't get a lot of it. Now, with the TV series, I also didn't get a lot of it when I first watched it, but I still got the general vibe of it. This movie feels a lot less focused in that regard. Well, not focused, not less focused, but well, I'm gonna be honest. You could cut at least 20 minutes from this movie. There is a lot of stuff in this movie that just doesn't need to be here. So it felt very overly long, especially in the first act. I can't even call it a first act because that's not really how this movie's structured. The first part of this movie had a lot of fluff that could have been condensed down into a couple minutes. Like a couple minute montage or something. But yeah, it was honestly kind of boring in the beginning. Now, once the dual performances started kicking in, it really started to pick up the pace. But that was around the 50-minute mark. So there was a lot of stuff before that wasn't great. The duels themselves were pretty fucking stellar. Easily the best parts of this movie. And while I'm on the subject, the way they're presented, the animation, the sound design, just the everything is fucking immaculate. This might be the best looking thing Kinema Citrus has done. This is on par with the Made in Abyss movie. Might even be better, if I'm being honest. It's pretty close. This is a fucking phenomenal looking movie. One of the best it's just one of the best pieces of animation I've seen in a very long time. It just looked fucking great, and that really carried a lot of this more questionable script writing stuff. And that brings us to now, full disclosure, I didn't rewatch the TV series before watching this. Again, like I said in the little intro bit to this, I watched the recap movie, Rondo, 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 before getting into this, which is about actually, it's a little less than half the length of the TV series. It's a 2-hour recap movie. And considering that that came out, I think, less than a year before this movie, I would presume that it would be good enough to get me into this movie. Now I think that's not so much the case. Or maybe it is, and then this movie just didn't do well. But either way, eventually I'm going to rewatch all of Revue Starlight and then this movie. And then also the last scene of Rondo. Because blood everywhere. What the fuck? Obviously it's symbolism. But here's my problem with this movie. The Revue Starlight TV series was pretty much open and close. It answered, as far as I can remember, again, this was, 2018, I think the show came out? The summer of 2018? So, almost, so 3.5 years ago now. But as far as I can remember, it was an open-close series. Story opened, told a bunch of stories. All of those stories were concluded concisely and definitively. and then the show ended. That's what I remember about Revue Starlight. I could be wrong. But that's what I remember about it. And so then we have this movie that has to build off of an open and closed story, which it gets around by Rondo changing the ending, basically. Not so much kind of changing the... Again, I have to go rewatch the original series, but Rondo basically changes the very last part of the series that concludes everything so that it remains open-ended. And I feel like that was probably a sign that this project was not necessary. Like, you told the story and it was completed. And then you realized, oh, you wanted to make a movie, so you had to go back and change the end of the story so that you could retell this story. Again, that's my loose collection of what I remember about the TV series. So, once that ending changes, not only do you have to retell Karen and Hikari's story and like start from scratch with that basically and go in a somewhat different direction, you also have to do that with all the other characters because this is a 9-character cast and there's a lot, like, again, all of the stories were pretty much concluded in the TV series, so they had to add on to those stories to keep those characters relevant to this movie. Some of it worked. Like, I kind of liked, Nana and Juna's duel. Kind of. It still felt very ass-pulley in a certain sense, but but in terms of like adding on to their characters and what directions they were going, like Juna wants to actually focus on the academic side of theater and wants to learn more about that, and Nana rejects that because she thinks it's Juna running away from the stage. So that was an interesting direction to go in, and I think it kind of worked. But again, it's building off of an open and shut story, so it feels jarring. Like, these characters' stories were concluded, and then it suddenly throws them right back into the drama. And then there are other stories that don't work quite as well. Like, I did not... well, I won't... Like, Claudine and Maya's story... I'm not going to say I didn't like it at all, but it felt real wonky in comparison to what I remember them as from the TV series. Or even just what I saw in the Rondo movie. Like that bit. And the Futaba Kaoruko one is literally just a rehash of that plot from the main series. So it felt super repetitive. So that's basically my main issue with this movie is it reopened characters' stories that were firmly closed. So, and it just feels very unstable as a result of that. Especially with Hikari and Karen. Then again, there's a lot of this that I just don't fucking understand, period. Which again is kind of like Revue Starlight proper, but like, I still don't know what wild screen syndrome or wild screen baroque means. I have no fucking clue what that's supposed to mean. The giraffe started explaining it, and then he burst into flames and jumped off of Tokyo Tower. If you haven't seen Revue Starlight, that probably sounds like a really weird statement. Trust me, it makes sense, is what I would like to say, but I also don't understand it myself. So, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about this, aside from, again, this is such a fucking phenomenal looking movie. The symbolism, or not the symbol, the cinematography, and like the set dressing and the way shit looks is so fucking cool and striking and just burns in your memory. Like there's a shot of the giraffe, but he's made up of vegetables and fruit, and it looks so terrifying, surprisingly. Yeah, I think I had a okay time overall. Again, those first like 40 minutes or so, aside from the train sequence, those first 40 minutes are real slow, and I was just constantly wondering why I was here. Once I got past that, I had a hell of a good time, but it took a real long time to get there. So eventually, not in the near future, but eventually I'm going to rewatch the TV series Revue Starlight, and then watch probably like the last 5 minutes of Rondo, 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 and then jump into the movie just to see if it makes a little bit more sense. But that's all I have for now, so let's go to the list.
I feel bad doing this as a Revue Starlight fan, but is what it is. Where did I decide I was going to put it? I'm going to put it... I'm going to put it right there. Decent 6. Again, definitely going to rewatch the TV series at some point in the future just to get it solidified in my brain. But speaking of TV series, we're down to the last show. We are down to Mushoku Tensei Season 2. Saved possibly one of the best for last. Let's jump into it.
Alright, I just finished Season 2 of Mushoku Tensei, and I'm gonna be honest, I kind of just sat on the couch in silence for about 20 minutes after I finished that episode. I feel affected by it. Where the fuck do I start with this? I mean, it's more of Mushoku Tensei, so if you liked the first season, you're definitely gonna like this. There's a lot of payoffs for stuff in the first season. Not like gigantic ones. Well, there is one gigantic one, but I guess I could just talk about the first season too as well, since I started this series before. I started this wrap up show after the winter season of this year, but Mushoku Tensei is a very special series in a lot of ways. It's just so engrossing in its world building. And normally that's not something I seek out in a show, to be honest. Like, the world building is not something I'm particularly fascinated by with a lot of shows. Usually I think it gets in the way of characters and plot and other things. But I really like the way that Mushoku Tensei builds its world. It never feels like explaining the world is interfering with the story in any way. It never feels like this is superfluous information. In fact, most of the time when world building is happening is because it's going to be very relevant to the plot soon. But it also never feels like it is doing it solely because plot is happening. It's this really great middle ground of being natural world building without just feeling like world building for the sake of world building. And this world just feels very connected and cohesive and vibrant as a result. And I think that's what sucked a lot of people into this story, me included. Along with what I think is one of Mushoku Tensei's other big strengths is its character writing. The way that these characters are written feels so natural and believable, despite the fact that it's still relying on a lot of very basic anime tropes, especially very basic isekai tropes. I mean, this is the isekai. It's not the first one, but it's the one that really made isekai start to get popular, is what I've heard. So, I just really love all of the characters in this and the way that these characters interact in this surprisingly dramatic, surprisingly melodramatic story at times. Like, there is a lot of family drama in this story as a result of our main character, Rudius, formerly some other dude in a past life, being reincarnated and starting from scratch, but he still has the mind of a 30-something-year-old. Or, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's how old he is. But, it leads to him interacting with characters in very interesting ways, because while he is mature enough to understand the world, he's still an immature person. So it really rides that line of just how mature is Rudius in terms of personality. And that leads to a lot of very interesting character conflicts, like the stuff with his dad in season 2 is some of the most interesting, most complex writing that I've seen in a long time. Just the way that, like, because his dad is kind of a scumbag a little bit. I mean, I would argue that Rudius is even more of a scumbag, because he's just full-blown pervert. But his dad, I mean, he cheated on his wife with the maid, presumably cheated on her with other people, and he's not exactly the best at being a dad, especially post-disaster. Like, he's a fine dad, but he also, like, struggles to keep up with Rudy in a lot of sense. And that's because Rudy is so adult, in a lot of ways. And so that really puts him in an interesting position. And so we have this very complex father-son relationship. It's just, God, the character writing is so good in this. And just the way that these characters view each other as people, like, I'm gonna be honest, I fucking love Eris. Like, she is hands down my favorite character in the show. I'm really sad she's going away at the end of this show. Or at the end of this season. I don't know how long she's going to be gone for, but that, presumably when other seasons are made. I'm surprised they haven't announced a third season yet, as far as I know. But, I really need a third season, because this series leaves off on a big fucking cliffhanger. But yeah, the way that Eris has grown from just this bratty little royal kid into, like, a very respectable young woman is just amazing. And just the way that the very nuanced parts of her character, like her anxieties and fears and stuff, how she relates to Rudius, her relationship with Rudius, which was fucking heartbreaking in the second to last episode of this season, where they fuck. Like, they actually have sex. And then and then at some point before Rudius wakes up, she cuts all her hair off and leaves and says that they're not a good match. Now, Eris is known for being not the best with words, which is, I love that little nuance about her, or that little detail about her, especially like she'll say stuff like it's amazingly amazing, and it really kind of drills into your head that she's not the best at speaking when she need she'll just kind of say things very bluntly, or stuff like that. So what I think she means by this letter of we're just not a good match is because it clarifies it in the next episode of she is horribly upset that she doesn't think she can do much for Rudius because he almost died in like one of the latter episodes, which was a very fucking tense scene. I knew he was going to come back to life, but just the build up to it was really great. And she wants to get stronger for Rudy's sake. But again, she's not the best with words, so that that letter kind of comes off real ambiguous, and Rudy is kind of just left there being like, what the fuck is going on? And just Rudy as a character is fucking really fascinating. Just they really drill it into you how, like, this is one of the things that I fucking love about Mushoku Tensei as an isekai, and just as an anime in general, relying on anime tropes. Like, he's a fucking, in the past life, he was a fucking shut-in, and they really drill it into you how fucking painful the traumatic event that made him a shut-in was. Like, he gets fucking stripped naked and hung on the school gate at school. And he just never really recovered from that until he got reincarnated. Like, a lot of other anime will go very in detail. Not actually, a lot of other anime really don't even go into detail about it. About the events that make the people who they are isekaiing. But even when they do, a lot of times I don't really feel the impact of it all that much. But just the way the show is directed, the specific shots that are chosen, the way Rudy's past life self emotes, just really sells you on this very traumatic event. And in the first season, you feel sympathy for him, but you also kind of fucking hate him because it only shows you him acting like a total fucking scumbag, like, years after the event where he's never fully recovered from it. And I think that's very purposeful in a way. You don't, like, if we were immediately sympathetic, or immediately totally sympathetic to this character, I think that would have come back to bite it later, when the fact that Rudius is still a fucking perverted scumbag who does not have the best views on women. But I like that. But in this season, like, you actually really start to get in his head a lot more about that trauma and how that made him into who he is. And just seeing Rudy very slowly, but very definitively progress throughout the series. Like, the last episode of the series is like, I think it's like Wake Up and Take a Step or something. And it's just him recovering from, like, Eris leaving him, and just that it's not the end of the world for him, so he has to keep going forward because there are still people who care about him in this world that he has to save. And I just find the character writing for this show really powerful and gripping. Like, this show just blazes by whenever I'm watching it. Like, I'm never checking the time code to see how much is left in an episode. I'm never checking rarely checking my phone to see what episode I'm on or whatever. I've just barreling through this, and it's just so tightly paced, and the characters are so engrossing, and it's just a whole lot of fun, and it looks fucking gorgeous too. I don't think it's I think it still is a little rough around the edges in a couple parts, this is just going off my vague memory of the first season, but I think the second season was slightly less consistent. It had a lot more standout moments. Like it had a lot more fights in it, I think, as far as I can remember. But I think that also contributed to some shots not quite being as good as they could have, but in very minor ways that are not wholly distracting. Like, character designs for this are really tight and just really cool. Although I will say, like, the roughness of the line work can sometimes be a little bit of a drawback. Only when those, like, kind of wonky shots come in. But again, that's not super prevalent. Of course, the action animation is fucking phenomenal. I love the color palette for this series. Just the way that that things are colored. Like, I never thought I could appreciate the color brown as much as I do in Mushoku Tensei, because this is like one of the few series where there is a lot of brown, but it's not like, it doesn't feel like it's a 7th gen video game piss filter. It feel like these are very nice, very rich browns and tans and stuff that make this world feel really alive and vibrant. I really like this show. Now, there's still some fairly sus stuff in it, even disregarding Rudy's character. Like, the Lilia, like his parents' maid, still kind of makes excuses for him, which is kind of weird. That was kind of sus. But I think this show is definitely like going in a direction where we're slowly starting to peel back Rudy as a sex fiend and just not slowly working him towards not being that. Like, he was like, he almost didn't sleep with Eris because he thought that would be taking advantage of her in a moment of weakness for her. But of course, she absolutely pounces on him with one of the hottest lines that I've heard from anime. Don't at me. I'm gonna be sitting on this one for a while, anxiously awaiting the 3rd season whenever it comes. I very much need it. So, yeah. Watch Mushoku Tensei at your own risk, because obviously there's a lot of sus content in it. If that doesn't sound like something you can stomach, maybe skip out on this one. We have to make this allowance for Mushoku Tensei. You have to be like, hey, there's a lot of creepy sex shit in it that's not great. Like Prince Pax's rant about how he's gonna fucking capture Roxy and rape her was very over the top, but he's a little shithead in power. What are you gonna do? Well, apparently, exile him is what they were gonna do. What they did. So, yay. Yeah, I really like this series. It really hits me very deep inside with a lot of its character writing. And just a lot of the very small lessons that characters learn along the way that shape them into the people that they become by the end of this season. Yeah. Alright, that's about all I have to say about Mushoku Tensei. Let's go to the list.
Alright, Mushoku Tensei, the last of the fall shows, is done. We're gonna put it... Now, this is where I initially had the first season at. Before all of these shows popped up. But I'm going to say the second season was definitely better. And we're going to put it right up here. Just barely below Heike Monogatari. And we're going to give it a light 9. And we're going to take this one out. Just call this Mushoku Tensei proper. So yeah, that is the end of the seasonal wrap-up show for 2021. Honestly, a pretty fucking banger year for anime. Like, this is the most shows I've ever finished in a single year by a fucking long shot. Like, probably double the amount that I've ever finished in a single year. So, yeah. That's about it for this show. But it is currently February 20th when I'm recording this, which means that these two shows are already done. And this one's going to be done in about 3 weeks. So, stay tuned for a seasonal wrap-up show, Winter 2022.